Thank you. Good morning. President Cowan, Your Honor the Mayor, Secretary Schultz, Congressman Dreyer, members of the Board of Trustees, and of the Annenberg's wonderful family, and my fellow citizens in a world that must strive to come always closer to the idea and the reality of freedom under the rule of law. We come here to dedicate something tangible, something visible, this magnificent building that you're about to see. We come also to rededicate ourselves to the ideas and the purposes for which this building was built and for which the Annenberg Foundation has graciously agreed to promote and to enrich and to preserve at this place. Lee and Walter Annenberg, with their wonderful ebullience and elegance and eloquence, would have been so very proud and pleased to see what their family and the Board of Trustees have done to preserve this magnificent legacy. The second verse of America that you just heard talked about pilgrims' feet whose stern impassioned stress built freedom across the wilderness. When the Annenbergs came here and completed their dream and their inspiration in the 60s, they came over a century after the pioneers who first came to California. But as President Cowan mentioned, they came with that same pioneer spirit. They saw a bleak and unforgiving wilderness, but they saw in it the possibility to exercise freedom. And I think they would have agreed with Alexander Hamilton, who said that the sacred rights of humankind are written with a sunbeam across the whole volume of nature. They believed in the idea of personal freedom and individual right. They believed that each of us has the capacity to own property, to create, to dream, to inspire, and to transmit. This is the essence of personal freedom. Freedom includes the right to property. Property gives you a safeguard against the government that is always all too ready to plan your destiny for you. And the Annenbergs understood that. And so they built this magnificent place as a tribute to the idea of human freedom and personal liberty. But we must not forget that the dynamics of freedom are much more complex, much more rich, much more essential than simply personal rights and personal liberties. Human freedom, as America has always understood it, means the right of citizens acting in concert, acting as a nation, acting as a people, to shape their own destiny and to plan the course of the nation. That is both a right and a responsibility. Each generation of Americans are trustees for the generation to come afterwards. And they must remember that. Each generation must remember that trustees don't grab all the assets for themselves, lest those who follow do not have the security and the ability and the sustenance to continue freedom. Each generation must be more powerful, not less powerful than the previous one. And each generation must also remember that as trustees, we must not allow the great instrumentalities of freedom, the great instrumentalities allow us to have civic purpose, to form political will, to atrophy or to deteriorate by neglect or by negligence. One of the great instrumentalities of freedom, the instrumentality that allows us to plan our destiny, that allows us to state our self-definition as a people, that allows us to inspire others who seek freedom, is our civic discourse and our civic dialogue. And that we have allowed to fall into disrepair. As you know, in public discourse, you often hear half-truths. You must remember that half-truths can soon be transformed into full lies. We must remember that a dialogue that is necessary to define ourselves, to state our purpose, to inspire the rest of the world, is a dialogue that's civil, decent, rational, intelligent, elegant, and tolerant. The Annenbergs understood that. The Annenbergs had Sunnylands for this place, for that purpose. This was their lives of the Annenberg people, of the Annenberg family, of these wonderful two ambassadors, were devoted to the idea that through decent, honorable civic discourse, we can make progress together. You must remember, my friends, that in much of the rest of the world, the jury is still out in the case of freedom. The verdict has not yet been returned. And if this country does not have a dialogue that matches the purposes and the aspirations and the dreams and the commitments and the brilliance of its framers, the rest of the world may reject the idea of freedom. We must do more to improve the quality of civic discourse in this country and of civic discourse on the world stage. Without meaning to be presumptuous, President Collin, I suggest that the Foundation consider adding to its already splendid civics program discussions as to how to improve our dialogue. You can have the Sunnylands principles. You can have the Sunnylands principles of rationality, civility, decency, tolerance, respect, and above all, commitment to the idea that we can only progress as a nation and as a people in order to preserve the individual rights that I mentioned at the outset. In a remark sometimes attributed to Gibbons, although I can't document it precisely, the history of the Athenian Empire in classical Greece is expressed somewhat as follows. In the end, more than the Athenians wanted freedom, they wanted security and comfort. And thus, they lost it all. Security, comfort, and freedom. When the Athenians were more interested in what society could give to them than what they could give to society, when the freedom they wanted most was the freedom from responsibility, then all of Athens ceased to be free. We must not just exercise our rights in the personal sense. We must exercise our rights in the civic sense. And that means to begin with a decent dialogue the Sunnylands dialogue. The Sunnylands dialogue of excellence and rationality and intelligence. Do this you can, do this you must, and I wish you well.